Not waiting on me. Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 7:21 p.m. Tonight we have present directors Teitler, DeFreitas, After, Ramirez, and myself, meaning we have a quorum. Thank you to our interpreter Astrid. Would you please share the interpretation instructions with our participants, and then we can turn on the interpretation function. Thank you. The first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Directors, are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Being none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? You may need to turn mics on.
As presented.
There we go. There a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Our next agenda item is our opening celebrations and updates by our superintendent, Dr. Anna Cole.
All right, well, it's kind of quiet around here because kids are out of school. But want to celebrate tonight that the audit planning for our 24-25 audit has already begun in the finance department. So many thanks for that team for really working towards a more aggressive and consistent calendar. We're hoping to have the audit presented to the board by December. So hoping to make some adjustments there to our budget calendar and finance calendar. Also want to appreciate the city of Glenwood Springs, which last week on June 5th approved the intergovernmental agreement to transfer ownership and operation of the district's home wireless broadband network from the district to the city, effective July 1. This agreement guarantees continued free internet access for Roaring Fork School District students and families who live in the coverage areas at no cost to the district. So we are really grateful for the city of Glenwood Springs City Council and the Community Broadband Network Office for collaborating with us to continue providing access to online learning resources and for maintaining this network going forward. And then finally, although we're out of school this week, the extended school year summer program run by our special education department launched. And tomorrow, the Summer Advantage staff training kicks off. So want to welcome all the new educators who are coming into town to support the Summer Advantage program. Send our gratitude to the Roaring Fork School District educators who are taking on another 5 weeks of support for our students. Thanks to the summer facilities, custodial, nutritional services, transportation, and family services teams who are providing support for both the extended school year and Summer Advantage program. And importantly, want to thank Summit 54, the local partner who contributes the bulk of funding to make Summer Advantage accessible. We have over 500 scholars enrolled this summer. So looking forward to support that work. Thanks.
Thank you. The next business in order is a panorama family and staff survey results presentation from Dr. Cole. And is Kelly joining also? No.
Normally we'd have our, we're short a director of data and assessment right now.
I think you might need to turn that mic on too.
Okay.
Oh, no. Is it on?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So short a director of data assessment right now, but, other staff had conflicts. So I'll be updating you all on this at a very high level because the board received a pretty extensive memo and the slides are pretty thorough. So I'm not going to go through all the detail everywhere, but there's some highlights that we want to celebrate tonight from this year's family survey. So the purpose is to provide you an update on the annual family survey and the staff survey about their administrators and about their schools. So the response rates we're always looking at, very interested in how we're doing there. They're holding for the district and increasing. We see an increase this year over 5 percentage points for the survey about schools for parents. So what's really significant, and I think we want to really shout out our school-based family liaisons who did astounding work in getting over 500 families who haven't typically responded to the survey to respond this year. So we're finding that there were some technical issues with the follow-up links that we sent to folks. So we're going to work to clean that up. Our target at the end of the 5-year strategic plan is to hit 50% participation and response rates on the family survey about districts and schools. We're on our way, but have a lot of work to do. Looking forward to addressing some technical issues. What happens with this data, and there's more robust data that's in the board packet that folks can look at, is that district and school leaders have reviewed the results in May and some of our follow-ups and leadership councils and planning. And schools will integrate the goals in their school improvement plans, which they'll be working on this fall. And then we use the outcomes as part of our district strategic plan. As the board's aware, the family survey results are metrics we're using to measure some of our initiatives around priority number 4, student-centered partnerships, as well as number 3, operational excellence. With family partnership, with the metric on student-centered partnerships, we're really looking at the feedback around trust. And with the operational excellence, we're looking at feedback on communications. So some bright spots on the district survey, which is really exciting. Each of the 3 key indicators showed either consistent responses to last year or favorable increases. So the 3 areas surveyed in the district survey include resources, climate, and then family engagement and communication. Overall positive perception of resources was flat as compared to last year, but both climate and family engagement and communication increased by 5 percentage points as compared to last year. Across every indicator, parent guardians of Hispanic Latino students reported more favorable responses as compared to Caucasian and white parents. The differential in indicators ranged from 12 to 22 percentage points. In the family survey about school, so this is where parents are responding to questions targeted to their specific schools. They're actually looking at a wider range of indicators. There are 6, so it's expectations of effort, learning and achievement, safe and caring environment, talent development, support and challenge every student, family engagement and communication, and learning opportunities. And this year we saw favorable response increases across every single indicator. So really want to call out a couple of things here that in the responses about schools, expectations of effort, learning, and achievement are at the highest levels they've ever been since the inception of this survey. And we saw that consistently. Only one, I guess, expectations of effort, learning, and achievement had 90% favorable responses. We did hit that once in 2020, but every other indicator saw the highest favorable responses since we began the survey in 2019. So pretty significant outcomes here, and want to congratulate our schools, our staff, and our school leaders who are working hard to put students first, to create rigorous learning opportunities for all, and cultivate thriving school communities. If you take anything away from this feedback from the family survey and from the staff survey about schools, is that the culture shifts we've been talking about, we're starting to see evidence of that in the perceptions of rigorous learning environments, the perceptions of data culture. And so definitely trending in the right direction here. Still work to do. Last year, we called out that we had fairly low feedback on responses related to the question of transparency. And that was an area of growth last year during this very same presentation. This year, we showed a 9 percentage point growth in transparency. So that feels really good, also trending in the right direction. Last year, we also noted that learning opportunities was an area for growth, and this area increased also this year by 6%. Next year, in terms of the family survey, we want to increase the overall number of responses. We want to address some of the technical accessibility issues that we think slowed us down and didn't get us to hit even higher levels of participation. And then there's only one question across the entire family survey about district that dropped slightly this year, and that was about teachers' access to educational resources. It saw a drop of about 2%, so we want to kind of figure out more what's going on there. And again, as I mentioned, our 5-year target for participation is 50%. Those are some pretty big numbers. And as I was looking over this with our Director of Student Family Services, Kelly Medina, one of the things that we really wanted to call out was that, yes, this is significant that we received over 2,500 survey responses from families about schools and almost 1,500 survey responses about the district. But it felt really important that the board and community know that this isn't the only way that at the district level we hear from families. We'd like to do a more robust accounting of district level family partnership and engagement work next year, but wanted to take some time tonight to also celebrate the more than 1,000 hours when we calculated all the time parents spent with us this year at the district level, more than 1,000 hours that families contributed to providing meaningful feedback on a wide range of initiatives, programs, and services through the Family Advisory Council, Equity Advisory Council, District Wellness Committee, and Circle of Parents programs. Each of these programs is facilitated by the Family Resource Center. I think most of us tend to think they're only doing resource and referral work, but have really stepped into more of this listening and feedback and engagement and parent leadership work. Families spent these thousands of hours prioritizing topics and issues for discussion, learning about high priority topics like mental health, bullying, and special education. They were also, as the board is aware, spent reviewing policies that impacted students and families and providing feedback on strategic plan communication tools. So also want to thank all the families that took time for the survey and also the families that showed up and took time to really work with us on district initiatives. Let's shift to another part of the panorama survey. So we also survey annually school staff about their school leaders. This is used in the leaders' evaluations and their growth and improvement plans. And so wanted to share with the board and community some of the feedback from the staff survey about administrators this year. And I'm going to jump, there's a lot of information. I just want to pause at this slide because this is astounding. So this is a change since, actually it's not an annual report, it's every 2 years. So these are changes since the spring of 2022-23. And these are pretty substantial increases overall in every single indicator. And this is every one of our principals and APs was evaluated through this survey. And so we see significant shifts in perceptions of leadership. Specifically, a couple things that we wanted to call out as we're, really focusing on rigorous learning opportunities for all, strengthening expectations around student learning. We had 91% favorable responses in this indicator around academic excellence. And so this is staff saying, my leader prioritizes student achievement. My leader cares about academic excellence with all students. This is pretty substantial. It's the highest we've seen since 2016. I would attribute this and the other data we're going to see to really the leadership on our team, our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Park, to Joel Hathaway, Executive Director of Schools, who really intentionally are working with leaders to level up and to really shift school culture. That team has really transformed. I mean, we have a somewhat different group of leaders right now than we did 2 years ago. We've had a lot of hirings, and that is a very rigorous process where we're looking for leaders who can shift culture, who can drive student outcomes. And I think it's starting to pay off. And this perception data was pretty, I think, pretty significant and really worth celebrating in terms of the leaders that we have in our schools right now and the culture shift that they're driving. So you can see some of the examples of the questions on academic excellence. How often does the administrator demonstrate a commitment to high expectations? And those, I mean, any increase of over 10 percentage points is like a mic drop. That's a really big deal. And these were consistently big jumps to the positive. So phenomenal results for this group of leaders, a lot of alignment with what we talked about in our last board meeting with the strategic plan, pushing data culture, pushing urgency, pushing efficacy. That's how it feels to our staff as evidenced by these surveys. And again, we attribute this to investments in the way we recruit, coach, develop, retain, and evaluate our leaders and setting higher expectations for them. They're driving and shifting school culture. So where this goes next, leaders are reflecting on their individualized results. It aligns with their goal setting that they then work with Dr. Park and with Joel Hathaway on their goals and evaluation for next year. They're also integrating some of the work with their strategic goals for their school and their UIPs for next year. We didn't have the strongest completion rates over all staff members. It was pretty consistent year over year, but we want to look at that as well and strengthen some of those completion rates. Staff also surveyed about their school and their school climate. So want to draw our attention to some of this data as well. And you see, again, this similar pattern of we are trending in the right direction. We are shifting school culture, the climate, what's happening in terms of leadership at our schools from the staff perspective is really shifted as compared to 2 years ago. Again, here want to call out academic excellence. We know this is critically important to our strategic plan, critically important to this board. And again, when staff were rating their schools in terms of academic excellence, you can just see that we're cranking upwards. The kinds of questions that are asked that lead to this indicator in academic excellence is about balanced instructional collaborative preparation time. I love this question number 2 when we're talking about trying to drive data. The board is feeling this. We just talked about this during our work session. That question, how often does your school use data to improve student learning, and increase by 14 percentage points? Like that is where we need to be going. So this is really exciting. I hope you can tell that we are really delighted by this work in terms of that culture shift. And then communicating expectations to students and parents. Staff are really feeling that things are different and shifting. So some great outcomes here. Again, alignment with what we talked about last week or last time the board met in terms of strategic plan around data culture, great alignment with the rigorous learning for all. We're heading in the right direction. Same next steps here. Ready for your questions.
Thank you for that. Director DeFreitas, are you?
These are phenomenal results. I appreciate the use of that word on several slides. I hope that your staff, as they are scattered to the winds, I'm sure at this point, hopefully on beaches with no shoes on, are still going to hear about that. I don't know what celebrations you have planned. Outreach.
Mostly we realized we missed the boat that we were like, well, they all left. We needed to like celebrate in a bigger way.
Yeah, maybe just carve out some time to win the win for a minute, because that's a building level success across the district. And then for your team as well, when the data culture and the communication pieces have been just driven really hard by this board since we came on in this form, to see that growth is incredible. So can you remind me, I probably missed it. Do we see the data as a board? Does this come to our inboxes in like a raw form, or can we access that?
That's a great question. And I think we've asked, and I'm not sure where the answer, you received, there was, the kind of PDF reports, but you can't get it disaggregated in that way. But I will ask, so I'm just trying to find a place to take notes on my notes. I'll find that one out for you, because it is fascinating to be able to go into the Panorama website and actually kind of dig around. So let me find out if that's possible.
Well, the other thing that's triggered by numbers like this, when you see such incredible growth in notice demonstrated and stated goals, is you have the ability to create or note some kind of replicable system. How was this so successful, and how can we share that either with other interested parties or just with our future selves when we remember what is working? So I'm interested in, we're always like, oh, well, how can we make that better? And I'm interested in, if this was working, how can we make sure it is accessible, or what was being done? I don't know. I don't want to make more work when it's a celebration, but
Right.
That's just a thought I had.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you. Director Tyler?
I will echo the comments of incredible, super well done. That's really positive and a great thing to feel good about. And whereas all of these, and you did mention a little bit about the fact that if all of these schools are getting these results, then it's not coincidence that that's happening there too. So big shout out to the leadership, as you mentioned, at the district, who are putting the administrators in the position to have that success. And there must be something being taken off plates in order for that to be happening, while at the same time is added to. So like there has to be some kind of give and take that's allowing something else to be happening. So great job in making people feel good about their jobs, and how that must then trickle down to the teachers, which then trickles down to the students. And so it's just a very positive outcome. And just that line that says highest score since they began the survey in 2016, 2 thumbs up.
Director After?
Great, thanks. Thanks for this report. It was fun to read in advance, and thanks for the enthusiasm about the positive results. I guess my first question is, how will you keep it up? Let's leave it at that.
That's such a good question. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot, especially, and you all are part of this, anybody who's been here for longer than the last 3 years, is that we have to do a better job as a district at building systems, not building a system that's built around unicorns. And what I mean by that is that we've had some phenomenal folks in our district, and sometimes when we're small and people wear a lot of hats when they leave, if they've been kind of this metaphorical unicorn, they go and the system falls apart, and they haven't actually built a system that can sustain. And so we talk a lot about shared responsibility, someone leading and someone being responsible, but then building a network where folks understand they can cross cover. We have shared expectations. We have stronger norms and practices. And so this is a lot of the work that I think our strategic leadership team and our senior leadership team are really trying to work on, because I think all of us in different positions are trying to clean up from the impacts of the turnover of a unicorn. And so you know, I think that a lot of the things as we codify everything from a principal hiring process to some of the work that the board's doing in terms of strengthening systems and accountability and building calendars, building stronger cadence of what do we do on a day-to-day? You know, how do we look at data and trying to just not leave that up to chance, but by being systemic, I think is the work we're trying to drive. It's slow and it takes a lot of time. It's very easy to have one person kind of go out in front, just make a whole new thing happen. But I think to Director Tytler's point, you don't then see this positive momentum across multiple schools. So as we work through, I think it's being cognizant of systems building, and really making sure that there's shared responsibility. And I think the board plays a big part of this, of, you know, us having our goals, sticking with them, staying accountable to them. Because then we're going to build these systems that, I mean, you're going to hear it when you hear Chief Chicoine talk about getting to go into a second year where we're just tighter and things get easier because we've built stronger systems and more people can carry the load. So.
Great, thanks. I had the same question as Lindsay on the school level or detailed data. So just double clicking on that, that'd be great to see that. It was great to see such the engagement from Latino parents in the parent survey. What do you think is driving the positive responses there?
You know, I think that's a piece that actually we were just talking about this today in the FRC team. I don't know. And I think it was something that we felt like we wanted to lean more in on.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, we talked a lot about wanting to, one, do a better job of bringing the parent survey data back to parents and communicating that back to parents. And so some of the ideas we were kicking around was just wanting to also help folks understand that it's okay to complain and to share critical feedback through this tool. I think sometimes we were worried that folks wanted to be generous with us. And so I think there's some education. I think there's us getting curious. One of the things we did with Family Advisory Council this year that we thought, you know what, we should go a little deeper on that, was we paused and created a little bit of time for folks to complete the survey. And we thought, well, gosh, wouldn't it be powerful if schools did this a little bit more at parent meetings and celebrations that happen when that window's open. And so I don't know, but we are curious about that and feel like through education and maybe a little more two-way communication around the survey, we might be able to get more information about that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is like the conversations that happen, say, when someone is working with a parent to say, hey, did you do it? Let me help you. Let me talk you through this and why we do this and what we do with it. So we're kind of stuck on that a little bit.
Yeah. You talked several times, or you mentioned culture several times, culture of schools. Do the schools with deans of culture see different outcomes and results than the schools without deans of culture?
I have no idea. That's a really interesting question. The way we would look at that, we'd have to compare because our elementaries don't have deans, and our secondary schools do. That'd be an interesting way to look at the data. We haven't looked at it that way yet.
What would be another factor around culture driving the more positive?
You know, I think it's about it. I think this goes back to the presentation on the year one of strategic plan. And we talk a lot with school leaders about, you know, the main thing, let's keep the main thing, the main thing. And the main thing is student achievement as defined by, and we now have metrics, in-year metrics that we're looking at, which align to teacher evaluation tools, which align to the work we do on data days, which we're trying to sync up with how we lesson plan. And so I do think that tighter consistency is helping. You know, this was also the first year, this was the year that as part of the work, and you all remember that when the learning acceleration plan started a couple of years ago, a big piece of that was consistency in school culture. And, you know, that work has now been integrated into the strategic plan. So we consider that chunk of work kind of done, and what it started, we're picking up through the strategic plan. But this was the first year that we really implemented and expected all schools to have a consistent culture plan that was, yet again, building systems, not dependent on some real dynamic school leader, but a codified system that, of course, was unique to the Eagles or to the Frogs, but had some consistent components about expectations and school culture. So I think it's a little bit of a push to say that culture should be more consistent, and this is what should be the main thing. And then the tools to support that to happen would be my best guess. Right?
Thank you.
Director Ramirez?
Well, I'm so glad you guys decided to push it out because it definitely, I think, helped you guys get a lot more responses, and the flexibility, I think, was really important. So kudos to your team for that. I know like for some people it was really stressful to like keep getting the messages, but I also think it obviously was important. And we do, I think there's part of the education piece, right, for
Yes.
our school district to also get back into like realizing that this is an important tool that we're using. I just had one note that I think it would be appreciated if there was a way to desegregate by school, like by community. So like Basalt,
Oh.
Carbondale, Glenwood.
So all the schools in each community?
Well, I mean, not all the schools, but like the community, because I think there's
Yeah.
also a community aspect to it. That, you know, that I think it would be interesting if that tells a narrative too. And, you know, I think like just all of the things we've been doing and being able to look at this data and see that there is forward thinking, forward moving, I think is great. You know, I think this should be celebrated, to Director DeFreitas' point. And, you know, I don't know what that looks like next year, but I hope that our team, like your team, takes the time to celebrate and you know, really take in this accomplishment. Also that our school teams are able to be celebrated too. And again, I don't know what that looks like, but I hope that you hear from this board that it's something we I think support and would appreciate if you guys dedicated some time to that. Not just via like a newsletter. And then I just wanted to echo your thanks to the over 1,000 hours of volunteer time that families give to our school community. I think that's amazing, and I really appreciate that you guys took the time to like find what that was.
So I too want to celebrate this. I was giddy reading it the other day.
Same.
Because I feel like this has been work that this board, this administration, these amazing staff members you mentioned have been pushing for years. And you're seeing the outcome of all of those conversations, all of that work and that push for data culture, especially in those huge spikes related to student achievement and outcomes. So that was pretty incredible. And I just wanted to, all of my other questions were answered. And I think your response to Betsy's question about how do we sustain this and taking that from a systems analysis perspective is super important. And so just wanted to lift that up one more time and say I fully support this continuing to move in that direction because that's how we create lasting change and steer this giant messy ship. So thank you. So we'll have 5 minutes for any further open discussion on this item. No? Okay, thank you. At this time, we welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. There are 4 speakers signed up tonight. The board allots 45 minutes for public comment. To respect the time of all who are present, speakers are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Reminder to all speakers to uphold our procedures for public comment. We ask you to be thoughtful and constructive with your comments, and thank you in advance for sharing your feedback. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may always do so in writing at any time. For this evening's public comment, we received 0 written comments. Our first speaker tonight is Katia Gonzalez.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Katia. I want to address an email sent by Director DeFreitas titled "Some Thoughts on the Past Week." An email that fabricated a biased narrative, misrepresented me as a victim, casted Voces Unidas in a negative light, and attempted to defame both my organization and myself. Let me be clear. I stand with Voces Unidas because I believe in the integrity and the importance of the work that we are doing. I am not being placed in impossible situations. If I am sitting here today, it's because I have chosen to be a voice for those that have fallen in between the cracks. Director DeFreitas, how can I believe that you personally adore me when you used my name, twisted our conversation to fit your narrative? You wrote, and I quote, "I finally got out of her that Alex does not believe in relationships." I never said that. While you fixated in the idea that we were issuing all ultimatums and that we were dividing the community, I highlighted the reality. The community is already divided. We are not the cause of the division. We are responding to it. Voces Unidas continues to fight for progress in a school district that continues to exercise practices that have shown no progress in eliminating the achievement gap. The ongoing gap is being upheld by those unwilling to take bold steps forward. Director DeFreitas, you claim that our meeting was about Voces Unidas' decision to weaponize their advocacy approach with threats and ultimatums. How can you say that? Voces Unidas is one of the only organizations that I know that is genuinely working towards uplifting Brown communities in this region, who have been marginalized and led to believe that their voices don't matter. You argue that Voces Unidas is driven by leadership that doesn't actually have a plan besides move fast and break things when it comes to making change. Yet here we are, 3 decades into the fight for a quality education, and another year has ended and the Roaring Fork School District only did do the bare minimum. Your strategic plan may serve those who make the cut, but unlike some of you, I cannot rest easy knowing that others are being left behind. I can't help but still wonder, would your perspectives be different if you weren't a white woman? If the children we were failing were your own? Would this feel acceptable? And I ask the same questions to the rest of you. It's become clear to me that we're not fighting for the same vision. I'm here to hold my elected officials accountable, to ensure you fulfill your duty to provide all students with a quality education, not just a select few. ¿Qué es lo que queremos? ¿Y cuándo lo queremos? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alex Sanchez, who's joining us remotely.
So would you like to speak on the Zoom tonight? We just called your name.
Yes, thank you. My name is Alex Sanchez. I'm the president and CEO of Voces Unidas. For decades, governments like this school district have collected taxes from our community indirectly through our rent payments or directly in our mortgages. This is in addition to the sales, payroll, and income taxes we pay to the state and the federal government, which in turn allocate more funding to this school district to educate all residents. As our community has grown, so has our tax contribution. Yet the quality of education we get in return gets worse and worse. In 2020, inspired by the decades of past efforts to advocate for ourselves, Roaring Fork School District alumni founded Voces Unidas to elevate the voices of Latinos in all decision-making tables and to demand accountability of our elected officials. This is what every wave of immigrants to this country have had to do, from the Italians to the Irish to the Jewish community, and yes, Latinos. And in every case, those in power at the time, whether in New York City or Chicago or in Denver or right here in the Roaring Fork Valley, those in power at the time complained about the new voices, the new styles, the new type of accountability, the changes that made many of them uncomfortable. I understand that there are some strong opinions about we as an organization and whether we have the right to demand accountability of you. Let me address 2 points. First, it is not our job to educate current elected officials, even in rural communities, about the role advocacy organizations play in our self-governance model of government. We recommend that you take professional development to better understand these structures that have been in place for a very long time here in our state and here in this country. Second, it is also not our job to know how to fix a broken school district. That is your job as board members and the staff that you hire. Your job is to know how to run and how to fix school districts and ensure that all students, not just 40% of them, get a quality education. No buts, or ands, full stop. Our job as the governed is to hold you accountable, even if you don't like it or it makes you uncomfortable. And whether we work collaboratively or not is entirely up to you, the government. 2 days ago, I wrote to the board with 3 recommendations for board action. Whether you do anything with our suggestions or whether you choose to take us up on our invitation to learn more or not is entirely up to you. To close, we want to thank you as the board and thank you as a superintendent. We want you to be successful. No, actually, we need you to be successful. I hope you choose to lead us, to get us started, and to move us in the new direction that we need for the sake of all children. We stand ready to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alan Munoz.
Members of the board, my name is Alan Munoz Valenciano. I'm the regional manager for Voces Unidas de las Montañas, an advocacy organization created by Latinos for Latinos. As we close another school year, it is painfully evident that the Roaring Fork School District has once again failed to take the bold, transformative steps required to ensure quality education for Latino students. This failure is not just an oversight, it is a systemic issue that perpetuates inequalities and hinders progress for an entire community. Adding to this failure, this board is preparing to approve a new budget for the 2025-26 school year. Nothing in this budget provides a clear indication to the community about the investments this district is willing to make to achieve the significant and ambitious work necessary to eliminate the achievement gap, transform Latino parental engagement, or diversify the workforce to reflect the student population. This budget funds the same things that have not moved the needle in any significant way to address the real issues that impact our Latino students. How many more years will the district delay taking the necessary actions to eliminate the achievement gap between Latino students and white students? How many generations of Latino students will pass through this district without their parents having meaningful representation in decision-making spaces? How much longer will it take before the diversity of the teachers and administrators mirror the student population? This district stands at a crossroads. Leadership must be bold, courageous, and willing to challenge the outdated practices that maintain the status quo. Right now, that leadership is absent. For over 24 months, across 3 superintendents and 2 different boards, our community has shown up. We've raised our voices, shared our stories, and made our demands clear. Yet the district has failed to deliver the comprehensive plans and actionable roadmaps that are necessary to drive meaningful change. We call on this board to fulfill its responsibilities and provide immediate guidance and directives to Superintendent Cole. We have suggested the following. 1, direct the superintendent to come back to the board by December 2025 with recommendations for the process, timeline, and budget needs to develop the multi-decade roadmaps that we have been demanding. 2, approve funding to allow Dr. Cole to hire a consultant or a full-time employee with experience in turnaround work or school district reform to increase internal capacity to help prepare for the December 2025 recommendations to the board. And 3, use a superintendent evaluation process to hold the superintendent accountable to these directives. Plus, for the first time in history of the district, tie superintendent performance to the achievement gap. We are past the time for wishful thinking and hoping that we put in a strategic plan that works out in the end. We should know what we need to do to achieve bold and ambitious goals. Use your power, your authority to set this district on the path towards equity and excellence. The time for excuses have passed. The time to act is now, and our community can no longer wait. And we deserve action now. ¿Qué es lo que queremos? ¿Y cómo lo queremos? Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Elizabeth Parra.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Parra, and I am a parent of a child who receives special education services. I'm here to raise a systemic concern regarding the district's failure to provide designated mental health services as outlined in the IEPs of multiple students during the final weeks of the 2024-2025 school year. My son is in an effective needs program and has an IEP that mandates mental health support. About a month before the school year ended, I learned that the school's mental health provider had been let go. This meant that students like my son, whose IEPs legally require mental health services, were no longer receiving those services. My son's behavior began to escalate during this time, which led to his suspension and caused our family stress and son additional anxiety. I raised my concerns with the special education coordinator, and expressed that the school had not followed my son's behavioral intervention plan and that the lack of mental health support contributed directly to that outcome. I advocated strongly that the school find a way to provide the services outlined in my son's IEP. In response, I was told that he was receiving check-ins with a school counselor. However, those check-ins were not aligned with a specialized service mandated in his IEP. Eventually, this district did find a provider who met with him, but only during the final 2 weeks of school. Even then, I am still unsure whether that provider was able to meet the designated number of minutes required in his IEP. It is troubling that the district did not formally notify parents about the disruption in mental health services until the very last day of school through a letter sent home. This is unacceptable. Families should have been informed the moment the services were interrupted, not weeks later when nothing could have been done to make up for the missed support. From a social justice and equity perspective, this is deeply concerning. Many of those families whose children were affected are Latino and or from historically marginalized communities. By withholding critical information, the district denied parents the opportunity to advocate for their children in real time. That's not just a procedural misstep, it's a violation of trust. This situation reflects more than just an isolated miscommunication. It points to a systemic failure. The district failed to implement IEPs as written and provide promptly prior written notice to parents. Because this did not just happen to my child, I am submitting a formal request asking the district to provide a written accounting of all missed mental health services for affected students, to offer compensatory education plans for each of the students, and to create a corrective action plan to prevent this kind of service lapse and communication failure from happening again. I'm here today not just on behalf of my own son, but as part of a broader community that deserves transparency, accountability, and a seat at the table. That's why I support Pueblo Azul's request to form a parent-led audit committee for the special education department and Voces Unidas quality education campaign. Families deserve to be informed and included. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. The next business in order is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel, minutes from our previous board meeting, and policies JICA and JIH. Directors, are there any items that you would like to pull off of the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Can you please call the vote?
Director Hefter,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Teitler.
Aye.
Motion passes. The next business is discussion of the 25-26 budget with Chief Chicoine. Chief Chicoine, I'll leave it up to you how much of a presentation you want to give.
Okay. Jonathan's going to pull that up for me real
Great.
quick. Yeah. We did have a chance to talk about some of it
Yeah.
during the work session, and so I'll probably stay brief in this conversation, making sure to answer everybody's questions as well.
Great.
There we go. Okay. Thank you very much. And, so the last board meeting, we discussed a lot about the general fund and some of the other funds that feed into the general fund. This discussion is going to surround some of the other funds that we didn't talk about like the last time, and plus a general fund brief update on that. So that just lists all of the funds. We've already talked about the assessed valuation, mill levy rates. I have increased slightly the property tax total estimate because looking at the bond redemption fund, cash requirements in that fund, as I was finalizing those budgets, it looked like we needed a little bit more money. But other than that, it stayed the same from the last discussion. And that's just some budget assumptions we talked about last time. So the 24-25 general fund forecast is where the numbers change from the prior conversation. And we're showing a $1.8 million potential favorable variance, and really 2 million of that is due to the health fund, because we were talking about a potential need of a $2 million additional, well, actually the budget was 3.3 million. And we were looking at the potential of $4 million transfer the last time we were looking at our projection, and that moved to 2 million. So that actually reduced substantially. So the vast majority of that favorable variance is because of the health fund, which is really good news for the district. It gives us a little flexibility in some unknowns around student enrollment for next year. So it leaves us in a little better position than we originally thought we may be in. And then there was an unfavorable revision of revenue and expenditures totaling 450,000. And so we were more in line with the projection we gave in March 31st financials for the March 31st quarterly financial statements. Okay, so then we look at the general fund highlights. These, the top, the recurring deficit has not changed. That's still at a negative $8,473. But the unencumbered reserves number changed to 2.485 million. So that is a little better cushion than we had in the previous version of 900,000-ish. So that gives us a little bit more room should we have some more budget issues for next year around enrollment or the federal government. So those are the two big concerns. The main one to watch is really the student count numbers. That's why I keep saying it. We just have to really keep an eye on those, and we're going to start doing that and doing some review over the summer with that. Okay, we've already talked about the future outlook. Food service fund, $392,000 deficit, and a lot of that deficit is related to the increase in health insurance costs compared to the prior year. So that's a large deficit, but we have kept the transfer in the general fund at 200,000, the same as last year, and we still have a healthy fund balance after that deficit. We just have to watch the state ballot initiative to see if whether or not that passes, and we'll need to have some additional conversation at that point. If it does not, hopefully it does. Looking at that with the impact of student lunches. The grant fund, we had a reduction in revenues of about $2.3 million, which is mostly because of federal funding reductions and a one-time reduction in the transfer for FRC that was discussed, and some other changes in budget methods, and a small other net grant reduction amount. So we tried to get it refined to exactly what we're going to have in our grants. Bond redemption fund, as I said, this is the one that I think is a lot of fun. This is just repayment of bonds, but I love this conversation. The reason why, because it really aligns well with your, I know it's kind of one of my little fetishes, but it really aligns well with capital improvement plans and having 5-year conversations around capital needs, because then you can really start to align what your bonds, when your bonds come due, with potential needs that are on a large basis that you may need to have conversations with your community about. And so that's why I put a lot of these indicators in here so that the board can start those conversations and have discussion around the debt, which is a really important component of how we're doing on our needs with capital. So they kind of go hand in hand. Okay. And that's the additional information I was talking about. The assessed valuation, 2.1 billion is a CDE estimate, about a 16% increase over 24-25. I don't think it's going to be that high, but I still utilize their estimations because for cash flow purposes, it's really important to stay aligned. throughout all of the different funds for the district. But so that if that was to come true, then actually the mill levy rate would decline, but it really is dependent on where that assessed valuation comes in. We currently have 132.8 million remaining in principal, general obligation debt, and with like a $1.1 billion ceiling on that. So of available debt, we can be able to, with voter approval, be able to do so. Capital projects. Meadowood was complete with about a $3 million savings, thanks to the work of COO Ben Bumfach and others. So great work for the maintenance department on that. The 150,000 deficit for this fund is due to timing between 24-25 and 25-26. It's really hard because all the projects have to be done in the summer when the kids are gone, but then it's impossible to know that exact timing difference between those two. So you're going to always have these little fluctuations in that. We're going to just say that a target of 5 million in fund balance over time is really suggested. We have about 200+ million in assets, and that's only 2.5% of our asset value in fund balance, and that's a small number. So it just allows us to be a little bit proactive if there was an emergency to occur in the district. So to have that funding available. Housing fund is doing pretty good. It has a deficit that's showing of 1,064,000. However, that includes 1.3 million in depreciation. So net of that depreciation number, we're at $235,000 surplus. So we're doing okay in that fund. Student activity, that's pretty much, that is they do manage those at the school level, and I'm estimating another 10% increase compared to what I'm forecasting for this year. And we we show in our budget that we're expending all of the funding, but obviously that probably won't happen. So. And health fund, this just shows the depiction of what I was talking about with the health fund, that $2 million benefit compared to forecast. The claims utilization is lower. Conservative projections in 23-24 allowed for about a $700,000 better number, and then $160,000 favorable variance in stop loss. Okay. Any questions?
We'll go around and have 2 minutes each. Director Tytler, are you ready?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the time you spent on Monday, getting us up to speed also, and then the time in our work session. It's great to have these things come again and again. Makes it easier to digest and understand. I feel like I am understanding where we are with the budget. The only question I have, and I don't know if this necessarily is to you or maybe it's to Dr. Cole, but when I look at the designated purpose fund, for which we're missing ESSER, and we're missing like these $2 million worth of grants that we had got that we're not getting now. Can you tell us like what kind of programming is not going to be happening because of us not having those funds?
I could start, and please, maybe Chris, you can fill in the gaps. So, one of the things that comes to mind right away that we have lost funding for was last year we got about $200,000 from the Colorado Department of Ed that was pushed through the designated purpose fund for support for newly immigrated students. And so those were, we converted those to FTE at Glenwood Springs High School, Glenwood Springs Elementary, and I want to say Roaring Fork High School. That funding is gone. So that's a very concrete positions, services that are going to have to shift to other service delivery methods. ESSER funding was more tied up, I think, in a lot of ways, got complicated in covering cost. I don't know that there was new work that we pulled back from ESSER. The sub teacher. Oh gosh, yeah, that was the big one. Was the building guest teachers was pretty substantial, and that was paid for out of that. That's the biggest. Gosh, that's a big one of what we're not doing, but we've lived with it this year. So Yeah, I think those are some of the biggest ones that come to mind.
Yes,
Good catch.
there was some other one-time costs that were incurred, that we were able to utilize ESSER with one-time money because we knew it was close to one-time money. So we really tried to align that, or at least the past administration did. And they did a fairly good job, but there were some reductions and losses because I mean, we were able to help fund some of our special needs and special education, things that we were seeing increased costs on, that then we had to absorb that, and that turned into a little bit of the budget situation we got into for 24-25, as well as some of those other building needs that we were just talking about that were reduced.
Another one that comes to mind is we used to have a full-time health aide in every building, as well as 3.8 nurses, and now we're down to, we still have nurses, but health aides, there's none at the high schools, and then they're fractional at middle school.
Yeah.
So those 3 positions that were at GSES, Glenwood Springs High School, Roaring Fork High School, are not positions next year.
Correct.
And with the new money that we've been able to increase general fund budgets and all, is there any thoughts of putting those back in, or is that something for future discussion, or how?
You know, right now, the recommendation, and you're seeing it as part of the fund balance. To be honest, we're quite concerned about where student enrollment is going to come in October. And it feels like we're very, our recommendation to the board through this budget is that funding just be, sitting where it is in that fund balance, to help us weather, especially because it's one-time saving, it's kind of one-time savings. And maybe we can look at that again after October count.
I think that would be an important thing for us to look at that in lieu of our conversation over goals, our presentation that we just had from BOSIS here, our continued achievement gap. It seems like that was put into place to help rectify that. And it seems like that would be an important thing to look at refunding.
Yeah, I mean, I think another interesting thing that I would want to look at is, that funding came because of student counts and a definition on newly immigrated students that we received from the state. And it would be, I think we are all concerned based on qualitative data that we are not seeing the same numbers of newly immigrated students arriving, and that we haven't in the last 6 months. And we're pretty concerned I think that's why we're very cautious about enrollment projections. And so then it also would speak to, I just would be interested to see the numbers before we did that.
Yeah, so come October, that might be a good conversation to have again. Thank you.
Director After?
Great, yeah, thanks for this. And I'm acknowledging, this is so loud. Is that just me? Okay, thank you. I missed the last board meeting. But I was curious about how the board should know or evaluate or assess the big categories of expenses that this board talks about a lot. So emergent bilingual students, SPED programming. It's hard to see in the 25-page financials. Is there a way for us to do that? And I could probably rattle off a half dozen of those big categories, but it wouldn't be comprehensive. I don't know.
Can I talk about this? The reason why I have my hands outstretched is I'm just really excited that you brought this topic up. So this, the first year, as we're looking at making these big changes and improvements in finance, we really had to get through our budget and make sure everything is accurate. And that's really what we did this year. And we got down to that balanced budget and started to get people, more eyes on the budget and those kind of things systemically. But the one thing that I would love to see is for the finance committee and the board to delve into the needs of how we can align our budget with our student achievement goals and some of the achievement goals of the school district, and what is going to be useful information in our budget in the future and what is not. That was one thing that Dr. Cole and myself were grappling with is like some of the reports that we saw in the budget. We don't know how much people really use them or need them. And if we exclude those reports, then what is going to be useful for people to have? And it sounds like you guys might have some ideas related to that. So for the future.
Right. Because we tried to highlight through the narrative where there were things aligned to the strategic plan and investments. But I agree with you that it's not quite as clear to pinpoint how much are we spending on this. I mean, one of the tools that I don't know that we've included in this budget packet, but we can certainly share again is the school staffing models, because I think that's a really interesting, really clear understanding on how we allocate FTE to schools, which, you know, we're in the people business and the majority of our investments are on staff. And so where we invest on staff is where our priorities are. And we do invest as a district, but this isn't clear to the board and community. And so that's important. Significantly more resources than we receive, say, in culturally and linguistically diverse education. So the title funding that we get barely covers the district office support that kind of coordinate the work, and does not fund the 1:29 ratio of FTE that we allocate to every school, that we pull that out of general funding. And that's an explicit investment in our CLDE programs. But you're right, like I could show you where that is, but it doesn't like level up. And so that's helpful feedback for us, that like that would be helpful to see that. And it's tricky because it's not like we can show you that program budget, because it's a component of the ACEs budget, which is in the curriculum instruction, but then it doesn't account for all the money that's invested in the schools where the bulk of the work happens. So I wonder if there's an opportunity, whether through the board tracker or somehow, for us to debrief a little bit. Like I agree with Director Tytler that it's been nice to kind of have this consistency of information, but I think these gaps are helpful for us, of kind of the budget 2.0 that Christy and I have both talked about, that like right now we're trying to strengthen the existing frameworks and systems of slide decks and tools that you had, but it's not necessarily where we think we need to go. And so maybe we don't have a perfect answer, but it's a good gap that we can address.
And the thing is if you guys include some information and questions in the board tracker like that we still have an opportunity, and that is the benefit of having that last read, that we could put that in the narrative if there are some real significant gaps that we need to make sure that's inclusive in the report.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. I mean, I think, you know, there was one of the public speakers this evening pushed us on understanding the investment that we're making for Latino students. And I would not be able to say what the answer to that question is, or how it compares to the past. And so I think, and that's not the only category of expenses that I'd be interested in seeing. I think as someone who's looking at this at a pretty high level, any of that kind of information would be useful. I'll put it in the tracker. So at least I think at a bare minimum, we could work toward that for next year. And surely there's other boards out there who are asking the same question. Okay. Any early insights from the team on what the student count's going to come out in October, or is it too early / scary to say?
We're feeling like it's too early to say. You know, we, as the board's aware, a significant difference in the way we constructed the school budgets this year was we used the demographers' projections for the schools, which wasn't, you know, not all the schools really loved that because they were fairly conservative. I think we're feeling concerned that perhaps it wasn't conservative enough. So I think that's why we're cautious right now and trying to bring to you a pretty conservative budget. And frankly, tomorrow in a 3-hour senior leadership team meeting, we're running scenarios, kind of worst case scenarios. And what do we do if we're way under in the fall? And also, what do we do if we're way over, so that we can be responsive and quick and know what our priorities are and not have to kind of dink around for 6 months to figure out where we should spend money if we've got it. So we are running those scenarios, because we're not sure.
Okay. Great. I don't have any other questions. Thanks for your time on Monday and earlier this evening.
Director Ramirez?
Yeah, I just want to echo gratitude. I think we all benefited from the extra finance committee meetings that we had. So thank you for that opportunity. It was really good to be updated as we were checking in. I, more than anything, just wanted to touch on a couple of points that the board has already mentioned. You know, I think as we're looking at the budget into the future, there's obviously always an opportunity for us to take a step and decide if we need to allocate any of the extra money that we happen to have, if we have some, to any future programming or needs that we may have. And so I think it's important for us in this moment, like, we've done so much of this work to get to know our budget, which has been really great. You've worked to clean up the budget, which has been really great. Just having like titles for all the budgets has been really great. And making sure that all of our accounting practices are cleaner than before. And I know that there's still a lot of work to do in that section. But I feel like in the past, as a board member, it felt like we passed the budget and that's it. Like we don't get to see it till next year. And I think the beauty of us having a finance committee gives us as a board and us as colleagues on the finance committee to be able to take a step and say, wait a minute, like, can we understand the budget better so then we could go back to the rest of the board and sort of share some of this insight or new learning that we're having to then say like maybe some of the things that we do want to accomplish, like maybe it comes in October, maybe it comes before then, but maybe that is the beauty, I think, of us getting to a place as a board where now we're like, this is our budget. Like we feel a little bit of ownership more so than before, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. And so I just wanted to make sure I echoed that statement of gratitude and just reminded my colleagues that we have that time and that opportunity to bring this budget back. Sure. Thank you.
Director DeFreitas?
Yeah, I wanted to pick up Director After's comments about having sort of those categorical ways of looking at the budget, because obviously the resources that we allocate to our priorities are the only way we move it forward. And we don't speak fluent budget necessarily. So, but along with that, I also wanted to highlight how incredible it is to consider where we started this year and now to be at a point where we can actually consider adding another layer to that budget so that it's even more tightly aligned with what we believe in as a board instead of still having to stop the bleed. And so I just want to recognize that, like, I'm really excited for that push, Director After, and your interest in pursuing it, knowing that it's staff time, but knowing that, if we say we believe in these policies and we say we believe in closing the achievement gap, how do we show that that money is focused on those priorities? So I just wanted to emphasize that and appreciate it. And again, thanks for the extra time I had with you all last Monday, not this one before. And I actually don't have any further questions. So
yeah. And can I make one other note is because I think that we all kind of share the board's questioning around, just like more categorically and making sure that our budget is aligned to our student achievement goals and all of our goals as a district. And that is quality budgeting right there, is making sure that that is what is driving your budget. And I think that if there are these other issues that arise with the budget, I'm not going to say that we're done with potential cuts because we still have these threats out there. And also we have a very tight budget. So, at least then we have those goals in mind as we're looking at those issues. And that's also very important. Either way you go with additional funding or less funding, it's still very important. Thank you.
I don't have any further questions either. I do think I'm excited by the prospect of being able to budget in that way, the quality budgeting where we can align the way that we allocate our money to our values as a board, because I think that's where we've hoped to get. And so I'm excited for the new process and the new timelines, which will allow the board to meaningfully engage and do that for the next year. So thank you for all of your work on that. I don't have any specific questions. I think the narratives are an excellent addition. I think that reading through the narratives is super helpful. And so I would say keep those as part of the process if you're considering cutting anything. I really like the narratives. So we'll have 5 minutes of open discussion. If anyone has anything else to add.
I would just piggyback on what you said, Director Kuhlenberg, about being able to have this budget come to us in a way so we can do what you're calling quality budgeting and looking at programming because it just seems like it's all just, this is what this costs, this is what it was compared to last year. And it doesn't seem like the budget allows or has afforded us up to this point those discussions. And so I think that would be a great addition to the future too.
Yeah.
And I want to echo that sentiment because I think we've slowly gotten even to this place. And my hope is that as we continue to push forward, we'll get to that place where we all feel like, wait a minute, is there something that we as a board want to add or that we want to see that is in our budget within the system, like maybe we're not seeing it, or maybe we don't know where it belongs, but it already exists, and being able to press more on the team instead of feeling like we're just understanding it. So I hope we do work towards that.
And with what we have passed as policy on ADB, sort of like is stated in there, the hope to be able to go in that direction. And so
Exactly.
You know, I've worked on this before with, these, aligning the budgets really effectively to, your goals, and that doesn't need to be a difficult process. A lot of times it can be overly complicated and then people don't understand it and then it just gets caught in the weeds. But you can make it super high level so that it's easy to understand and everybody could just understand it within a 5-minute time period, which is probably the norm or standard I would look for. And so I've got some ideas that maybe we can run by the finance committee and see where we can go.
Great.
And superintendent, of course.
Thank you. Do we have anything else on budget before we move on? Okay, great. Thank you. The next business in order is approval of the state E-Trans loan program resolution. Do I have a motion to approve the state E-Trans loan program resolution?
I move that the board approve the state E-Trans loan program resolution as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We'll now have 2 minutes for each board member if you have questions, and then we'll entertain any intervening motions to amend. We'll start with Director After.
I don't have any questions about this.
Great. Director Ramirez?
I don't have any questions either, but I don't know if you want to just share some high level comments about this. Sorry, Director Kuhlenberg is looking at me. Maybe not.
We're trying to, just gonna note, we're trying to get out of that habit in board meetings, so we jump right into questions with the expectation being that we've already read this as board and avoid the presentation cycle.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sorry.
This just because not everybody reads a good memo. I wanted to make sure I asked that question, but it's pretty easy. Reasons just are low.
The high level is we're going from 15 million borrowing to 30 million. And I just want to note that because the state is going to have a conversation with the district about that. We have to really be thoughtful about our use of fund balance, and we still are tight on our funds. So we're in good financial position right now, but we just have to really monitor this. Yeah. That's the summaries that help. Keeping within that 15-second soundbite.
Good. Director DeFreitas?
I don't have any other questions on it. You've been very thorough in several memos and presentations throughout the year. It's an unfortunate situation to be in. I wish the system wasn't this broken, but I appreciate your conscientious approach to it.
Director Tyler?
Only question I have is for the Kuhlenberg family, if you've ever seen that redirecting by. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
I think they know it well.
Awesome.
I also don't have any questions on this. I appreciate the update and understand the need for the increase in this property values. And valuations continue to shift. I'm sure we'll have to continue to revisit this as long as it's a state program. So thank you for the work on it and the presentation and the discussion and work session. We have 5 minutes if anyone has anything else on this. Are there any intervening motions to amend? Can you please call the vote?
Director After.
Aye.
Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg.
Aye.
Director Ramirez. Director Tyler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next business in order is approval of Jonathan Landon as the district's designated election official for the next board director election in November, and approval of the district's official intent to participate that will be submitted to the 3 county clerks within our district. Do I have a motion to approve Jonathan Landon as the district's designated election official and to approve our intent to participate in the November election to all 3 counties?
I move that the board approve Jonathan Landon as the district's designated election official and to approve our intent to participate in the November election as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We'll now have 2 minutes of discussion for each board member and 5 minutes of open discussion. We'll start with Director Ramirez.
Thank you. Jonathan Landon for being a member of our team and for being willing to do this work. I just want to take a second to appreciate you and appreciate Director After, who has so graciously taken a the opportunity to step up and help us as we, as a board, transition and have these conversations in the coming months. And so I just really want to appreciate the commitment from our board and our team, and just an alignment of making sure that we're prepared for our next election.
Thank you. Director DeFreitas?
Thank you, Jonathan, for stepping up in this role. Appreciate your interest in fulfilling that duty. And just for the, I think, 4.5 people listening, the board elections are a crucial cycle of participating in government in a way to make a difference, in a way to improve your community. And so for people who are listening and considering how to bring forward voices that haven't been heard in the past, please get the word out there in your communities, in Basalt and in the section of Carbondale that may end up in cycle this year, depending on decisions. And I just think it's really, really important to make sure that we bring as many voices forward as possible in that election. So consider your time and investment. It's a steep learning curve, but it's worth it.
Director Tytler?
I guess the only part I would like to comment on is about how do we get the word out to the community? And we said we go through our usual channels. And maybe if we can find some channels that aren't our usual channels to get it out also. And so however that is done, work your magic, and that would be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. I think one of the things we do is we do a forum, which the timeline that I sent to Director Ramirez shows that candidate information session would be on the 27th. The call for candidates, I think, happens August the 6th. So we may want to do it a little bit earlier than the 27th, which is actually the night of the board meeting, to try to get more people to understand what it is and how it works and everything. The information session from last year is actually on the website. We have a district website for the election, so people can see that and learn about that as well.
Thank you.
Director After?
Great, thanks. Thanks for doing this, Jonathan. I like the website. I think that's a new addition. Appreciate that. I noticed that the PDF that has the important election information is in English and Spanish. Is there a way for people reading in Spanish to read the website in Spanish?
Yeah.
Or is that something we could add?
On our website, at the very top, you can change from English to Spanish.
Okay, so
That would change all the
Yeah,
language on
okay.
that page.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work on this and for stepping up. I know it makes for a busy year in your role. And I would fully support you moving that up because I think people need to pick up packets in the summer. So
Yeah.
really, they're making decisions in the month of July to get those packets back by August 6th. And so,
Actually, no, they pick them up on the 6th is the earliest they can pick them up. And I think it's the
Okay.
29th is the last
already-
day to turn them in. So the sooner we do it around late,
yeah,
the first week of August would be beneficial.
okay. Yeah, I just think the more communication we can push out, the better about it.
And I
Good.
think we should do a press release,
Mhm,
same thing.
to understand. All right, any intervening motions to amend?
No, but I'm assuming that information night will be live translated as well.
Yes.
Anything else on this? Can you please call the vote?
Director After,
Hi.
can I call my own vote here?
Yeah.
Director After, Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Tytler.
Aye.
All right, we'll now move on to our final agenda item, board updates and appreciations. We'll start with Director DeFreitas.
Skipped me.
Am I supposed to start with you? Started with you on the last one.
Don't we have a whole thing?
Okay.
I'm not-
You wanna go first?
You go first.
I don't really have any updates. And I think appreciations are for the people who are trying to get so much work done in our buildings over the summer. I know that there's a really tight timeline for a lot of the infrastructure upgrades fixing. And that is a job that I think is celebrated really intensely in the classrooms that have now like a working HVAC system or something, but not, I mean, really intensely. That is pure joy if you get to walk into a school that has better air conditioning opportunities or upgraded anything. But district-wide, I don't know that that role is seen enough. And ahead of that, our COO, Ben Baumfox, work to line up those contracts, RFPs, with constantly changing timelines and budget and everything. It just takes a lot of pre-planning, a lot of finesse, a lot of people management, recognition of prioritizing, especially in a tight budget year. So I just want to appreciate all the work that none of us will see getting done this summer.
Thank you. Director DeFreitas, or Director Tyler, excuse me.
So I'm a little confused on our,
I know.
I'm gonna go last.
Just
Okay.
go with.
Just normal.
So that's okay.
As we
So
normally do.
with that and the fact that we're going to be talking about presidencies and stepping down, and I would like to have my appreciation go for you
Thanks.
and Catherine. And I think the things that you've been able to give to this board and through your position, number one, is your ability to look from the 30,000-foot view and to see things from all moving parts and being able to bring them together and to be able to work for consensus. And I recognize that you have, to an extent, put your own things that you would like to work for in the board position aside for the benefit and the betterment of this district and the board and just the whole working operation. So I look forward to your voice being a different voice and seeing that part of how you can be as that type of a board member. But I also want to say thank you for all of the training that you've gone through, all the conferences you've been to, all the countless hours that you have given to so many different people, and especially the way in which you are able to synthesize and give messages when you're responding for the board, that you do a very nice job of putting it succinctly, but also doing it with compassion and with knowledge and with making it all a very balanced message that you're able to give. And in addition to thanking you for all your time, I want to thank your family too for sharing with us all the time that I know has been taken away from all of you and all of the interruptions to your schedule that happens. So just an overall appreciation for all the work that you've done these almost 4 years.
Thank you. Director After.
Great. Yeah, I want to start by thanking Sarah Dogby and Brian Snow, who I understand rolled off the DAC recently or are doing so soon. Sarah and I met with some potential interested DAC members today, and I was just struck by her commitment to the process. And so I want to share our gratitude to her and also to Brian, who is such a great participant in the finance committee meetings. And also to thank you, Catherine, for all your leadership and the experience working with you under you as the president for the last 2 years has been quite remarkable. And you're a fantastic leader, to everything Kenny said. And your drive to keep this district moving forward is really admirable. And I have a ton of gratitude. I've learned from you every time I've interacted with you. Thank you.
Director Ramirez.
I wanna say that this wasn't my idea to have Catherine go last on appreciation. Okay. But, I
Still the chair, guys.
Last week.
I have appreciated and I am so grateful. And I was mentioning it to Director Kohlenberg today that she's so much a part of my life and my everyday, which is really an apology to her family because we are constantly on the phone and trying to I think the greatest honor for me in this fight, in this journey over these last couple of years has been to be a partner with you and to be able to learn from you and have you to lean on and have you to calm down when needed and to be able to grow in this role and this leadership role and to share our successes together. It's been truly, and like I said today, I hope you don't, as much as I want you to have a break, I also hope that you still pick up the phone when I call and And I don't think I can say thank you enough, for all of the amazing work that you've done as chair.
Thanks.
I don't think any of it would have been possible without you.
Thank you. I know I changed the game, guys, sorry. I wrote, well, I wasn't going to write a statement, but you all told me to write a statement, so I did. So I'll give my statement and then, yes, I will be sending an email to all of you, resigning effective immediately as board chair. Once Director Ramirez accepts that resignation as vice chair, I will then conduct elections to elect a new chair until a new chair is elected, and then that person will then conduct elections to elect a vice chair. So I'll
Doing
read
all of
my,
that.
what?
We're doing all that right now.
Yep, we have to do it immediately. Yeah, which is why we did this at the end of the meeting. Um, so as you all know, I'm rounding out my 4th year of service on the board. And I've held this role since my first meeting. So Natalie was board chair. She held the election for my position and I took over. So I came in knowing that it would be an incredibly steep learning curve and taking on a board that I, didn't know anyone well. Kenny and I came on and jumped in as just 2. So it was a big jump in, but I was super excited by the prospect of impacting kids and families and meaningfully changing systems within our district. And it's been a whirlwind, and it continues to excite me, engage me, challenge me daily. I love the work. I also am exhausted by the work all the time. So I wrote in my last community column about just taking a moment to celebrate wins. And so I wanted to do that for just a minute tonight, because it's been something that I've been trying to practice more. And although this has required huge amounts of time, energy, commitment, we've done a lot in a short amount of time. And I think it's important sometimes that we recognize that while also recognizing that we have to continue to push forward. And tonight we did something that I've been hoping this board could do since I got on, which was finalizing specific measurable superintendent goals and performance goals. And although we have some tweaking to do, we've done that. And that's part of a comprehensive annual superintendent process that we've done 3 years in a row. And so implementing those systems changes, they seem so boring, but they are also new, exciting, and they are what cause change that actually has an impact. And so I'm super excited about that. I mean, we've also, and this is the boring stuff, but you guys all know, like the handbook, the trainings, the board norms, the board communication, all of those things, while they're boring, mundane, they're also vital so that the work of this board can continue in the same ways that Dr. Cole was talking about with her staff and the systems change as it relates to the panorama survey. So the next people that get on this board can roll on and get to work in a way that we as board members were unable to because we were facing that steep learning curve. And when you have a board like this that is so powerful and is positioned to really be impactful, making that little change can really affect its trajectory because they're not hitting a huge road bump every 2 years and they can continue to roll forward. And the only other things I listed here, although there were many, I feel like, was signing our first ever CBC. I'm super proud that I got to put my signature on that and be a part of that process and engage with our RFCEA to protect the rights of our staff, to figure out how we engage with them consistently, with clarity, with purpose, so that we have those understandings. And then pushing hard for that cultural shift that we talked about earlier too. That's been something that we've done quietly as a board, also more overtly within the whole organization. And so shifting the way that everyone in this room focuses our conversations to be student focused, talking about data and using that information to drive our decision-making, our processes, our conversations. Look how bored my kids are. That's been another super important change that I'm very proud of. And yeah, and that was all like in addition to the policy, the superintendent searches, all that other stuff that was going on. So it's great, and it's great to take a moment to celebrate, and it's also so sobering because there's so much more that has to be done, and we have to continually play the long game. And I won't talk forever, I swear. So one of the things that I came in and that I've talked to, I think all of you about is the power of the growth mindset. Like I teach to my kids, we teach it in our classrooms. It's something that I think is super important. And it's something that I've tried to fully embrace in this role. And that's been hard in a lot of ways too. And so I wanted to just take a moment to recognize that, because in embracing that mindset, you're constantly pushing for change, you're constantly pushing for growth, and you naturally run into pushback. Because it's hard. It's hard to embrace change. It's hard to adapt to it. It's hard to say, even though we're doing so much, we might need to do it a little differently, or we might need to do more. But that's what we need to be saying, and that's what we're teaching our kids. And I'm just super proud that we've led that push as a board. We're seeing that change, and that we sit here tonight with an administration that's supportive of that, with staff that's supportive of that, and we're moving in that direction, because that is also a cultural shift that we've made. And I wanted to just call it out, because I think we say it a lot to our kids, and we need to remind ourselves as adults that we need to be doing it too. So I'm just super grateful for all of you and for this opportunity to be here. Thank you to my family. Thank you to my kids for being here and for always putting up with me being like this, making dinner, talking, doing all the things that have to be done, me going like this all the time. Think, how much longer are you going to be on the phone? 2 more minutes. Hold on. Because without them, I wouldn't have been able to do it all. And I'm at a point where I'm ready to step back. I'm ready and confident in handing this over and saying, we've got this. We're going to continue to move forward. We've put systems in place where we can continue on that trajectory without someone coming in and having to start over and figure out how to manage here. And so I'm excited, and I'm excited to take some time to be a person who has other passions and commitments and can do other things. And so I am sending my email right now. So I effectively resign as board president. I will remain on as a board member, and I'm looking forward to continuing that very important work in that role. So we will immediately, per state statute, go into elections procedures for the role of chair. So nominations are now in order for the office of chair.
Wait, I have to accept your resignation
Oh, yeah. Do you accept my resignation?
with an immense amount of gratitude and appreciation. I accept it again.
Thank you. Okay. So now nominations are in order for the office of chair. I nominate Director Ramirez for the office of chair. So Director Ramirez is nominated. Are there any further nominations for the office of chair? Seeing none, nominations for the office of chair are now closed. The nominees for the office of chair, or the nominee for the office of chair is Director Ramirez. Can you please call the vote by roll call?
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Director Teitler.
Aye.
Director Ramirez, you are now board chair.
Thank you. Hey. Thank you. Okay, we will now hold election for the office of vice chair. Are there any nominations for the office of vice chair? And I would like to nominate Director After for vice chair. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. Sorry, now I'm all lost in your, that was Katie that you. As there are no further
Nomination for vice chair.
the nomination for vice chair is Director After. As there are seeing no further nominations for the office of vice chair, can you please call for the vote?
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Teitler.
Aye.
Thank you. I would like to now make a motion. Oh, yeah, congratulations.
Hey, thank you. Hi.
I would like to make a motion, please to enter a school board resolution honoring Director Catherine Kuhlenberg for exemplary service as board chair. If I could have a second, please.
I second.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this, as I stated already, this was a little out of order, but the board wanted to take the opportunity to highlight further some of the amazing work that Director Kuhlenberg in her short time as board member has done on behalf of the students of the Roaring Fork School District and families. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and read it. And then should we take a vote first? Yes. Please call for a vote for the resolution.
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Tyler.
Aye.
Okay. Whereas Director Catherine Kuhlenberg has dedicated 4 challenging and transformative years to the service of the Roaring Fork Schools School Board as its chair, demonstrating unwavering dedication and exceptional leadership. And whereas under her leadership, the board navigated complex challenges, including the continued impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, district leadership hires and transitions, the creation of the superintendent evaluation norms, superintendent goals, as well as board goals, housing and health insurance hardships, and a financial crisis. Whereas with her at the helm, the board passed the historic signing of the collective bargaining agreement, invested in and expanded housing solutions for staff, and committed to transparency and accountability in reestablishing the District Accountability Committee. And whereas she championed initiatives that prioritize the well-being of students and staff, including the safe haven policy, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism policy, the implementation of the bilingual and LGBTQIA best practices, and the learning acceleration plan. And whereas she led the board with the spirit of collaboration, transparency, and accountability, strengthening board norms and implementing the board's policy committee and finance committee, as well as creating the board handbook to help future directors of the school district. And whereas her steady leadership, thoughtful guidance, and unwavering dedication have left a lasting impact on the district, its staff, students, families, and community, and will leave an enduring mark on our district that will continue to drive us for years to come. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Roaring Fork School District Board of Education on this 11th day of June formally recognizes and expresses its deepest gratitude and heartfelt appreciation to Director Catherine Kuhlenberg for her extraordinary service, tireless efforts, and profound contributions as board chair. Be it further resolved that this resolution be entered into the official minutes of the board and a copy be presented to her as a token of appreciation and enduring respect. Thank you. Okay,
I'm gonna close out the meeting.
if you want to.
No.
Yeah. There's no further business and there's no objection. The meeting will be adjourned. It is 8:58.
Hit it.
Hit it.